Hey!
What are we doing now?
Well, our door doesn't really match our dining room, you know, the rest of the East Indian Trading Company thing. And I found this doorknob at Ross. It used to be 40 bucks, but now it's only 12. I thought it'd look real nice, and then to do some kind of theming to the door to kind of blend it in. I've already started taking it apart. We'll have to finish it before nightfall because we'll have to have a door.
Yeah. All right, let's get
Okay,
it done.
let's do it. Do you want to see if that'll work with the new doorknob?
Yeah, let's see. I don't think they make metric Allen sets, do they?
We don't have metric, do we?
I don't think so. So the first problem with this is being metric. I don't have a metric Allen set. I'm just trying to put a slight mechanical bind on that, pushing it to the side. Okay.
Is it not going to work?
Not going to work.
Yet another thing we might have to jimmy rig. Since the doorknob for right now is a bust, let's go ahead and take the door off its hinges, and we'll start on the theme of the door and the paint. We can use the old doorknob until we figure out how to jimmy rig it.
All right.
Okay, so what I was thinking is I would like to do this about the same color, like a wood grain, a faux wood grain, like the chests that are in the dining room, but it needs something a little bit more
decorative.
A little bit more decorative, because you know India, they do all of that wood carving. So I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I've got about 6 pieces that I took a wood carving and made a mold of it and cast it. And I think those will be really cool. They're real decorative. Yeah, with it up like that, yeah. And then, now of course they'll be painted and everything. Some of them have these little tabs on. I think we'll need to cut those off. Nice smooth edge. Good job. Yeah, the other side still has its tab on it. Do you think we need to sand the backs of them? Shall we start sanding, I guess? Mm-hmm. I can also cover this in a real thin coat of laminating epoxy, too.
I was just thinking, instead of doing circles, that might help with your wood grain.
Good, smart, yeah.
So it's 56 overall, and it's a foot on each side centered, so I brought it up 3 inches to make 9 inches from the top.
I like that.
So look at that. This is 30 inches overall. So I can't quite do that, can we? And we measured corners on.
I'm thinking maybe we attach these with epoxy. I was first thinking screws, but these are the hollow doors.
Epoxy, I think, is the way to go. These are a product from Fiberglass Coatings Inc. It's laminating epoxy. If you have, some people have allergic reactions to epoxies. Epoxyamines, it's a contact dermatitis, especially if you've worked with these for a while. I have a pretty good allergic reaction to these, so try to keep them off of your skin, and when they start to catalyze and exotherm, they get warm and they will off-gas a little bit.
And it's not just contact dermatitis, because I get a terrible sore throat, so mine doesn't show up on the skin.
But it's respiratory.
But it's respiratory
so,
for me.
Make sure you have mechanical venilation, keep yourself covered up.
Use gloves.
Use gloves. So this epoxy, again, is pretty easy. It's a 1-to-1 mix. Disposable cups, because it'll set up and then we'll just throw them away. We kind of use
upcycle,
recycle. So what I usually do is keep reusing this cup along here, so we don't have to throw them away. And these cups are pretty nice because they already have these little marks, so I just kind of do this one. The same mark on this one, that gets you your 1-to-1.
It might not hurt to put a little extra activator so it'll set up a little bit faster. You got to be real careful with this, though. If you put too much, then it stays sticky.
The resin is the clear, the catalyst activator is the molasses-y looking darker color. So what I usually do to keep from contaminating is I'll use 1 for 1, and then I'll use the catalyzed stick separately. You can use this to kind of scrape this one out.
What's nice is it's really hot today, which will assist in the epoxy setting up a little bit quicker. On a very, very, very cold day, it is possible to prevent your epoxy from setting up at all. So it does need to be at least 70 degrees, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So this stuff we're familiar with. It usually takes 20 minutes for it to really start its
tack
catalyzation. It starts getting hot a little before that, and it starts to get kind of runny. And then it starts to get runny, get hot, and then starts to set up, and will set up usually in 3 hours at 72 degrees. Of course, it's a couple degrees higher than 72. It starts setting up a lot faster. And
it's probably 90 out here right now.
Yeah, so this will go pretty quick. Getting below 40 degrees, you probably won't get it to set.
So I've made it thicker in the areas that the molding goes, but I am adding light texture to the rest of the door to simulate a wood grain. Get it spread out evenly, but once I start the graining process, I want it all going one direction. Okay, let's start with those pieces then. We're not gonna. So we've never done this before. Who knows if this is going to be an epic fail?
This doesn't want to stay down.
Okay, so we're probably going to have to wave it. Need another one of those plastic lids that you don't mind throwing away.
Can assist it with heat guns.
But if you hit it too hard with the heat gun, it starts to cook and boil, which could add a cool texture if that's what you're going for. Once it starts to set up a little bit, it gets a lot gooier, and that allows you to add a lot more texture. But you've got to continuously work it because it will level itself out. Something else you can do is put deeper wood grain in. I'm really putting a lot of weight into this. It's getting very, very sticky, so to get a texture in, you really gotta push. And the deeper ones that I put in are still there, but by doing this, I put some smaller wood grain in to make it look not so man-made. I just discovered a new technique. You put your popsicle stick on the brush, and as you pull it along, it'll do your deeper graining. It's dry, and it's ready for paint. So what I'm using is Downy. This is just the container I keep paint in. We have a lot of friends that give us their old paint, and we reuse it. So this is actually latex paint, but the Downy bottles make a great container because you can use the lid as a cup. There's going to be a lot of layers on this because we're going to simulate wood. I'm starting with a nice yellow, and you don't have to be too precise with this. Keep it going in the same direction that your wood grain is going to be in. Let it dry and we'll add the next coat. Time for the next layer. So I want to do some washes. I'm going to start with this really dark wash. I'm going to wash this into all of the detail of the carvings. That'll really help pop it later on. What do you think? Got one last red wash on the top once it dries real good.
Okay, so we're working on a couple different problems. We want to put this decorative doorknob on. It won't work with a latch assembly. With this type of assembly, this goes in like this. The mechanism rotates back and forth. The problem we're having is, to use this, it doesn't have the half moon latch, and we won't ever get the door open. In our piles of scrap, I found this. The idea is to cut it down. We will tap threads and put a screw in that will have this type of mechanism on this side. This is just the right size as it loads into here, and whenever we have this in there, we'll be able to open the door. So now we just need to work on that, see if we can make it work. Cut it down, put a hole in it, see how well this metal taps, find a screw out in the garage, and put it together.
And then we have a beautiful decorative door handle that we got for 12 bucks.
Alright, let's try it.
Let's try it.
So I found a couple things at a local hardware shop. Found a screw similar to the hardware. This is old hardware from the other knob. This is a screw from the hardware shop. And I was looking for barrel nuts. The only ones that I could find were aluminum. Slide in my modified doorknob mechanism into the lock first. I think that'll look pretty nice. And since this is the side that's most decorative, we'll put it on this side. So I just drilled these out, so these will fit like this. So we got that tightened down. Now just put the knobs back on without getting them cross-threaded. We'll see how tight I can get these since
they're metric. A few adjustments and it'll be good.
I think so.